What's up, mobile gamers? It's Johns or Gigs, back with another tier list for you guys, and I'm kind of excited for this one. We'll kind of see. Obviously, you guys know I don't really like to play Vanguards very much, especially some of the most recent ones, and I know we've seen a lot of different buffs, a lot of second ultimates, so the only hero on this list that doesn't have a second ultimate is actually Ruby, which I find very interesting. So um, I'm not really sure how I'm going to rank her because I feel like a lot of these heroes, if you have their second ultimate, it's really, really game changing. Um, and so we're just going to straight up start off with the worst two, which is going to surprise a lot of people. Zero Kelvin is C tier. Now, if you look at it, it's really just that everybody else in the game is better than him, not necessarily he's bad. So this tier list is going to be a little bit easier because of the fact that if you look at the roster, that's how a lot of these are going to be ranked. So, yes, Zero Kelvin's pretty decent, actually. I think he's not that bad. I don't think that if you want to play him, you can play him. Like, it's not one of those heroes that, like, he's in C tier, so don't play him. So, let me know what you guys think on that, because obviously the average player can get all these heroes because none of them are in the arcade, which is always a plus. And Zero Kelvin's not terrible. It's when you bring him into rank that he really starts to fall off. And if you have anybody that really wants to focus you down and get you to change heroes, they can really do that very, very easily with Zero Kelvin. And that part is because he has no way to protect himself from height like the other heroes do. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going to think, oh, what about Victor? We'll get to that. He's the next one we're going to go through. But overall, I just feel like Zero Kelvin, his second ultimate, is not as good as I would have wanted it to be. He doesn't really do much. The snowball does a lot of damage, but once you get rid of that snowball, you're going to die almost instantly if the team is not focused on other heroes. And he really lends himself to that off tank role instead of a mainstay tank like somebody like Jabali, where you can just sit on the point. But he does not really do much. Like, if you're going to pick an off tank, you should pick somebody else. I think that it's one of those cases where everybody else just does what he does better. If you want the snowball to deal really good damage from far away, you can literally pick half the roster and still do that. If you want to be able to protect your teammates with the snowball or something like that, then you can just pick Ono. Most of the heroes have better range than he does, and the ones that don't have a way to close the gap. They have abilities that lend themselves better to the things that Zero Kelvin is trying to do. I wish that the stun was better in his second ultimate. I don't really use it very often. I tend to use the first one just because it's better for damage. But I do hope they buff this second one. I think if they just made the snowball a little bit bigger and they fixed the glitches with the snowman, which is his second active, then I think he'd probably be B tier. The problem is that the snowman doesn't push the payload, defend the payload, or defend the control point. So if you use that, you're going to lose the game if you're in overtime. It will literally cause you to lose the game. So that really sucks. Like, just that alone is why he's in C tier. And then you have other parts of his kit that just don't meet the standards that all these other heroes have. If we're talking about like the snowball itself, all you have to do is get height. And with how good all these heroes are at movement or holding down a point, you have a tank meta and he doesn't work well in it. And that's a big problem. So the snowball does sometimes go through certain shields or bounce people back. But if you're really looking for that damage, I think you're going to find it better in the other dive tank, which is Victor. Victor's actually pretty good. A lot of people sleep on Victor. If you use him correctly, he can be a menace, but he is an off tank. And we've seen that you really need one of those mainstay tanks to make an off tank work. So just that alone, off tanks are going to be rated lower, because if you have a tank that's unable to hold the point, to hold that payload or hold that control point, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And a lot of these tanks, the top most ones in the S tier, you're going to see that they can do everything he can do when it comes to holding the point, and they just have better kits for doing so, for being in that tank role. So I know a lot of you guys are probably going to get mad, but honestly, Victor's not that good. If you just focus fire him, he's pretty easy to take down. And like I said, you need that main tank. If he doesn't have the main tank, you have to be very careful. And then he's almost not even a tank, because he can't hold the point for as long as some of the other heroes. His second ultimate is actually very good. The problem is you don't get it as reliably as the first one. And they did nerf it as well. So the first ultimate's a lot better for stunning capabilities. I think you guys are going to notice that that utility that you get from some of these heroes is really what's going to push them and elevate them up into that S and A status. If he does not have something to bring to the team, then it's going to be very difficult for him to get into that S and A tier. So I think that's where Victor's at. It kind of sucks, because I honestly, like, if I look at the heroes I like to play in the tank role, they're all very low ranked tanks. So I love playing Victor. Zero Kelvin's not bad, and you'll see later on that some of the tanks that I like to play are not S tier at all. I actually don't like either of the S tier tanks that we have. So with that being said, I just did a video on Jabali for his new skin, and a lot of people were saying he's not very good anymore. Honestly, he just soaks up too much damage for me to say he's not S tier. The amount of damage you can do, you have the second ultimate that allows you to reflect damage, right? So when they shoot you and you have your second ult up, they shoot the shield and it automatically reflects back at them. And a lot of people have auto fire on. So all the people that do the most damage and would normally kill you when your shield drops, you just wait for your shield to drop. You can see at least 3 people, maybe even 4, targeting you, and you just time it right. And when your shield drops, they all start shooting at you, and you drop your ultimate, and it puts up a new shield, right? And that causes them to basically kill themselves. It's one of the only ultimates that's just insane. So that scales on the fact that your enemies aren't as good, right? So the better your enemies are, the worse Jabali is going to get, because he's easier to counter by a better player or a different roster. So I got that water for myself real quick. But that's kind of my thoughts on him right now. This is the tier list, right, for the average player. So the average player, when you're not like, this isn't even diamond. I'm talking about like bronze to gold, maybe into that lower platinum. Jabali's insane. Lower level players are not able to counter him as well. Lower level players can pick him up, and he's very, very, very straightforward. You put up the shield, you close the distance, and he's got auto fire. He's not one of those heroes that you really need to think about when you want to play him. It does take more skill to get, when you're in those higher ranks, to get better at him. But I would say for the average player, he's just so easy to pick up compared to all these other heroes. Honestly, he's the easiest tank to learn. So I think that lends him into S tier. He's the easiest to just pick up and get good with. The average player in the lower tiers of ranked and in pubs is just going to enjoy him a lot more. There's nothing worse than having somebody switch from a Zero Kelvin or a Victor to Jabali. It's simple, right? I mean, he's just that good. The shield soaks up way too much damage, and as long as you're playing him correctly, all you have to do is close that gap with the shield up or with an off tank or a healer or something like that, and you're going to be good. You only run into a few instances where you really worry about his range, I would say. So as long as you have that shield up, you're pretty much good, especially when you're looking at some of these other heroes who, I don't know, they don't soak up damage, right? They have no way of stopping an Osas or a Lassia from killing them. And it's very difficult for all these other tanks to do, where Jabali can literally just, boom, shield. And there you go. So let's think about this real quick. I think we'll go with the most obvious one for the next one. Fort is S tier. He's the best tank in the game. He has damage from any range. He has the ability to stop stuns and utility abilities with his second active. His shield can be placed wherever you want, right? So you place it, and by the time it gets destroyed, unless they destroy it in like the first 3 seconds, you're going to have it again because it's only an 8-second cooldown. His second ultimate ability is the reason he's an S tier. So a lot of you guys would probably say he's A tier, and I would agree to some extent. But if you use his second ultimate, he becomes insane. It literally stops them from doing anything but moving. So all they can do is run away or try to dodge your bullets and stuff like that. If you get his second ultimate off, it will change the game. It will team wipe. Well, it will allow you to team wipe, I should say, because you still have to shoot them and stuff like that. But it's very nice to have that counter playability. And I think giving that to a tank was probably, I don't know, I think they could have buffed a lot of the other tanks instead of giving that crazy ability to Fort. I think if you gave it to like Victor or something, you'd really see a change and you'd see Victor rise up a little bit, but some of the other heroes would stay where they're at. So I don't know. That's my thoughts, but I do enjoy that he has that ability. The Generation 1 skin's obviously really cool. So I don't mind playing Fort. I think that of all these heroes, I like the ones that we haven't ranked yet the most. I know that's crazy to say. And Victor's also on that list, I would say, but kind of on the bottom. So keep that in mind. Just so you guys can tell, I'm not being like, my favorite tanks are all at the bottom, and the 2 tanks that I hate playing the most are right there at the top. So I think this is the easiest one for me to not be biased on. So Fort's really good. Really like him. I'm not so sure if he needs a nerf. Maybe, honestly, if they wanted to revert the nerf or the buff that they did where they gave him an extra bullet, I would be fine with that. Really needs some help for Zero Kelvin. Maybe a little bit for Victor as well. So this one is going to surprise you guys. Fade is A tier. I'm debating, right? Putting him into S tier because if you look at the tanks, we have basically 2 main tanks. I would say Ruby's not a main tank anymore. She's more of a flanker tank. She's got that off-tank role. The only problem, right, the only reason he's not S tier is because certain maps bounce his cannonballs. So if you shoot, it will hit part of the floor and it'll just boom, it's gone. It's like you hit that and it goes off to the side and your shot is worthless. And he only has 2 shots. So if you play him wrong, if you don't use his shield or you miss his rush, his dash, you're cooked, right? Because you don't have any way to do damage while you are not using abilities. And that's the main reason he's an A tier instead of S tier, is because he does not have the supplementary damage that everybody else has. If you get close to a Jabali, you're screwed, right? He's got so much damage potential, but if you get close to a Fade and he's already dashed before, he's not going to kill you, like almost guaranteed. The only way he would is he'd have to hit you with both cannonballs, and you'd already have to be low on health enough that it would kill you. So that's why he's an A tier. His second ultimate is the reason I'm debating putting him in S tier still, because that will guarantee a squad wipe. Unless they are a really bad team who's not by the objective, right? If you have a sniper way off in the distance, then he won't die, but that's only because he's not in the ultimate. It's a guaranteed kill, you guys. I don't know how else to say it. If the whole team's clustered on the payload, you will kill the entire team. I've got a short on the channel that literally is me killing the entire team. I killed all of them with 1 ultimate. And I didn't even, I kind of missed it. I didn't put it in the right spot. It goes through walls. It goes through shields. It's just insane. It's literally busted. I cannot believe they gave him an ultimate that crazy. And the only thing that helps is that his shield can get destroyed sometimes pretty easily. His dash, his rush is able to be dodged if you're really paying attention and waiting for it. And his primary weapon is just not very good. It's decent. It's all right. But, if you get Giga Cave Mines, right? If you get Giga Cave Mines, you're in a tough spot because your cannonball is going to be bouncing all around, and that goes for Zero Kelvin's snowball as well. So he really does struggle. I would say it's very difficult for you to get value as a Fade. You have to take the time to learn him. Probably the most out of all of these heroes, Fade is the hardest one to get good at, I would say. So I think that if you take all of those very small things into account, that's where you find, okay, well, it looks like Fade's not as good as you thought he was, right? But the ultimate's insane. The dash is crazy. It goes through shields. It stops people from their ultimates, right? So he basically full counters Jabali and Fort if Fort doesn't have his second active, which is like the armor that makes him immune to stun and stuff like that. So he's really crazy. He's really good. A lot of people are saying that his dash is easy to dodge and that it's basically a worthless ability, but I can count the number of times I've had my dash dodged on one hand. Most of the time, if my dash doesn't hit, it's because I'm stupid and I activate it and I hit a wall next to me or something, right? Like, honestly, I mess up my dash more than any other hero on Fade. But when you're looking at it objectively, most people are going to hit that dash if they're close to you. So I will also say he does have that ability to bait the dash, right? If you stop firing and stop moving, they'll go, oh my God, he's dashing, and they'll try to stop you or something like that. Or you drop your shield or something. So you can force people into a corner. And the dash is an instant kill on pretty much all the flankers and healers. So he does have the ability to deal with them just only once, right? So if the Aletta rewinds before you hit the dash, you're cooked, basically. But I'm not really sure who to go with, you guys. I really like both these heroes for the next two. I really want to rank Ono very high. I love playing him. He's so much fun. I just don't think he's S tier because you just have no way of holding that point. Even Fade has a better ability to hold the point. I'd say Fade's better than Ono. I'm also debating, right? He's not S tier because he can't hold the point, but is he B tier? Okay, this is honestly, you guys, Kelvin is C tier. You can't, there's no way to argue that he's not, right? He's very clearly a C tier hero. Ono is one of those ones where I've had Onos that I've been played against in 5v5 and they've been Ono. And I'm like, what? I did not think this hero was that strong. This guy's impossible to kill. And then you have Onos where it's like, oh, he's Ono, free kill, and I'm playing Aletta or something, you know, one of the heroes I personally am not good with, and I can still take down an Ono. So he's very odd to me. I don't know. My experience with him is very hit or miss. He's either an S tier Ono player or he's garbage, and I don't think he's worth even picking up. So then I have to take into account, like, okay, I love to play Ono. So should I put him in S tier? And I don't think I should, because I don't think that's fair to all these other heroes to take into account my opinions. And then you go, okay, well, let's look at it objectively, right? His second ability is garbage, never hits, right? You can be right on top of them, and he swings them around, and they just don't hit. I don't know what the hitbox is on that ability. It's insane. It's garbage, right? And if you hit all his shots, he's actually not bad. His damage isn't terrible. He does have good range. His second ultimate is very, very good. I would say it's kind of below Fort and Fade's second ultimates, but it's better than Victor's and Zero Kelvin's second ultimate. And, of course, Ruby doesn't have one, so I can't compare that to her. But really where he shines is putting that shield on a flanker or on somebody who your team is very much focusing. If he can get them to survive and get a trade, or put the shield on the flanker and they go into enemy lines and take out two of your snipers and your damage dealers, he becomes very insane very quickly, and he becomes a target you have to take out in order to win. So that being said, I think that he's between S and B. I can't really realistically put him in those categories. I can't put him in B. He's better than Victor. The ability to shield a flanker is too good. His second ultimate's too good. But the inconsistencies in his kit and in his fire rate and all that make it so he's not S. He's not better than Fade, but he's definitely better than Victor. So it's one of those instances where I'm not ranking Ono by directly his kit and how good he is. I'm ranking him by how does he compare to the other Vanguards. He's not better than Fade. He's not better than Victor. Therefore, he goes in A. So please tell me what you guys think of Ono. He's literally the hardest one to rank on this list because I don't know, man. Like I said, I've seen some Onos that are just cracked at the game, but most of the Onos I see are B to C tier, right? So he's very difficult to rank, and I know a lot of you guys like him. I know a lot of you guys don't like him. So let me know, because he's very hard to rank compared to Zero Kelvin. Like, Zero Kelvin's counterable. He's literally, that's his whole kit is, can you counter that? Yes. That's straight up. His damage is good, but I mean, honestly, he's just not where Ono is. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Tell me why you like Ono. Tell me why you don't like Ono. And please give me some comparisons, right? Because I feel like if you look at his kit objectively, he should be really good. He should be S tier. But then you miss with his second active. You have the weird fire rate that you kind of have to track, but you don't. Like if you're shooting with Fort, it's way easier. All these heroes are easier to shoot with than Ono is. Like, it's almost like his shots lag. Like, they did a weird projectile speed where his shots almost lag. Like, it doesn't feel like you're leading your shots like you would with Hualing or Fort, but he doesn't feel like he's hit scan like all the other heroes that are hit scan. So he's just weird, right? He's in an odd spot. And that's why Ruby is going to go above him. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys don't like Ruby. You don't think she's any good. The fact is, her shields are very flexible, right? She has the most flexible shields of any hero. You can't really go wrong with Ruby's shields except for the fact they don't have enough health. I think they need a health buff, really, honestly. Doing good on time. Probably talk about Ruby for a little bit, and then we'll call it a night. Ruby's pretty good. I mean, her shields are really good. If you get one shield destroyed, you can always use one of the other two. So she has literally 3 different areas she can go. The stun is insane, all right? The stun's crazy. It's better than all the other abilities that any of these heroes have, except for ultimate abilities, which then it's like that's not really a fair comparison. You can stun anybody. I don't think only Fort, his second ability, it counters the stun. Like if he has the shield on, it won't stun if he has his armor. So that's the only thing. And Fort's obviously very clearly the best tank. So I'm not going to knock off points for her not being able to beat the best tank. That's more of an attaboy for Fort than it is a dang Ruby, go down to B tier. She got a buff to the spread of her cards or her shuriken or whatever, depending on what skin you're running. She's got insane skins. She's one of the 4 holy beasts. So she has that Drasil feel to her. That does not that doesn't make sense to some of you, okay? If you've seen Beyblade, she feels like Drasil. That's how she feels. And so she really fits the holy beast that they gave her. Dragoon should not have been sorry, I lost my voice a little bit there. Dragoon shouldn't have been Judix. That was the dumbest idea. Gloria is very clearly who they should have picked because she's one of the best heroes. And she really has that Dragoon feel to her. I can't believe they picked Judix. I don't want to rant about it, but she feels like Drasil, right? Ruby feels like Drasil in the anime. If you guys have seen it, he's one of my favorite characters. I love Max and Drasil in Beyblade. But, sorry, going back to her kit, they changed the spread and they gave her more range, which was what she was lacking. The average player is not going to counter Ruby as strongly as you guys think. I know a lot of you guys are saying, it's so easy to stop a Ruby, especially compared to a Jabali or a Fade. And her first ultimate is not very good, and she doesn't have a second one. I guarantee you whatever she gets for her second ultimate is going to be awesome, and she's going to stay in A tier or go up to S. I know that's crazy, but she has very strong single target damage. But what I was going to say is she has very strong ability to stop you if you're close, like very close range abilities. But she also can bridge that gap. If you really want to, you can use the stun. you stun somebody far away, and by the time you get there, they're unstunned. So you can use that to close that gap, similar to a dash or an Ono shield or something like that. So she does have that ability. She's a little bit better in the mid range. I'd say she's not a very good long range hero like Fort or Ono, but then again, her kit's better than Ono's. She has the damage mitigation when she's by her shield, so if she's playing smart, you will not kill her. You have to stay far away from her. And a good Ruby will be able to time waste against their other tank or their healer and their close range heroes long enough that the shields and stuns will allow you to either A, take out a majority of their force before they can kill your Ruby. And then it's like, at that point, you're trading 2 or 3 kills for a Ruby's death. And then you've got it. Like, you can still push the payload. Or the focus on a Ruby, because you do have to focus her with probably more than one hero for the most part. They're going to allow those 2 heroes to go to the Ruby. And then you really go, okay, I have 2 snipers or 2 damage dealers or some combination of the 2, and I'm going to kill their sniper and then focus down on the healer. And I think that she really allows the team to really grow and do very well. So the better a team, the better the Ruby is going to be. The better the average player, the better Ruby is going to be. I think that you don't really get people that counter Ruby very easily until you get into that superstar, maybe top of diamond, that area. That's where you're going to see people that counter Ruby very well. The most average player is going to find her very difficult to beat, and all you have to do is just wait for them to push you, to try to come closer to your shields, and then you stun them and drop a new set of shields. And the fact that the shields move makes her very good for payload. Both payload race and payload escort. So the shield moving is honestly very good in every mode. If you just play around your shield and place it correctly, you can place it where your shield will move through the control point, and your team will basically wipe them out while the shield is moving. And by the time the shield goes from the start of the control point to the end of the control point and it leaves the control point, your Ruby and her team have taken out the very integral players. Now, her first ultimate does take a while to load, and it's not very good because all you have to do is put up some sort of shield or teleport, or a lot of heroes can really move around and stop it. So she's not top of A, but the ultimate is good for pesky flankers or healers. If you play her ultimate right, you can really capitalize on it. You can stun them. What I would do, right, because of the way the ult works, I would ult and then stun as the ult is like activating above your head and then shooting out. Because if you stun and then activate the ult, by the time it starts shooting, they'll have come out of the stun and be able to put up a shield or something like that. So do keep that in mind. Very excited to see what her second ultimate is. It's probably the one I'm most excited for. But she's not better than Fade because of his second ult and his ability to dash. So she sits in the middle of Ono and Victor. I think she's literally the most average tank. And so you see you've got 3 below her and 3 above her. So I think that's a fair spot to put her. Obviously, for me, she's S tier because I'm so comfortable with her that I very rarely find somebody that can beat me unless they're just really, really good. So I would put her in S tier for my personal opinions. And probably drop Jabali down to A tier because I just don't like his playstyle. Same with Fort. So for me, my A tier is the people I'm most comfortable with and feel they should be in S tier. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be objective for you guys. And like I said, I'm not sure how the community feels about Ono. So please don't get mad if I put him in A and you think he deserves to be an S or B or C. I don't know. I will admit that to you guys. Ono is the one that is stumping me. He's the hardest one to rank. And he's the one that if you guys are upset about his placement, just let me know why. Like, be like, hey, he should be in B tier because of this, and kind of discuss it in the comments because I really do want to know how everybody views him because he's so much fun, but I feel like nobody plays him, and that makes him seem bad, I guess, especially with how fun Ruby and Fade are. I mean, they're so much fun. Like, if you're trying out the most fun people to play, you go Victor, Fade, and Ruby. They're just fun. That's straight up. They're just fun tanks. So please do try them in pubs or lower ranks when you're grinding out the start of the season, and then transition into that Jabali and Fort when you're trying to get like higher ranks and stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think. We've got the healers coming out probably on Monday if I can get things recorded. And we will see you in the next one.